Hello. Hi, good evening to everyone. I hope you can all hear me. So let's start over here now. So, right, yes, in the previous session that we had started off with the very basics of the statistics, right? Like what exactly we talked about the central tendency, we talked about uh, the variability in the data, right? So we talked about certain parameters. So we will be taking up the things ahead from here today. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the sampling distribution of the sample mean. Now, this is very important part that we will be starting off with, and it's simple to understand and very simple stuff, right? If you all remember, right? So how we started was we said that whenever we have to do some analysis or we have to generate the insights, so what we do is this is the entire population. From the entire population, what we do is we take a small parameter outside it. Okay, we take a small sample out of it. What we do is we do all the calculations on this, and whatever insights come up, we refer or infer that okay, those things are being applied to the entire population, right? This is what we do. This is what we understood in the last session that we had. From that entire population, we take a sample. Now, see what happens is that we generally don't take one sample, right? What we do is we take multiple samples because one sample can be biased, right? One sample can actually give you some inaccurate results. So what we do is instead of picking one sample, we pick multiple samples from there. Okay, that is how the process of sampling and the process of statistics start. Because data that we have today is huge. It's technically impossible to work on the entire data and come up with the analysis. So what we do is we always work on the samples, and one sample can always be dangerous. So we work with multiple samples, right? So now if you see over here, so this is just a file that I will be sharing with you all as well, right? So we have this over here where we are saying that pulling one sample from the population could produce a statistic that isn't a good estimator of the population. So, for example, maybe the mean height of the girl in your class is 65 inches. Let's say there are 30 girls in your class and you take a sample of three of them. If by mistake you have picked all of them as a tallest, then the mean of that sample will not be a good estimator, right? So, everyone, just give me 2 minutes, right? Just start. 2 minutes. देख लो वो 4 बार देख लिया अब बोलेंगे नो लियो लियो sorry. Okay. Right. So what I was talking over here was I was saying that when you take a sample of the tree, so if you take right. So what I was talking was right. So what happens is when you talk of that taking the sample. So if you will take one sample, that could actually give you some biased results, right? Like for example, we have this small example over here that you have to find the average height of girls in your class, right? Maybe the average height of maybe the mean height of the girls in your class is 65 inches, and let's say there are 30 girls in your class, and you take a sample of three of them. If you pick only the tallest girls, definitely the average will come on the higher side. And if you take the shortest ones, definitely then the average will come the shorter side. So now this is what happens that that is why what we do is we don't take one sample, we take multiple samples and we work on them. Okay. So how do we do that? So how do we make sure that we get the correct number of sample is we actually make use of the concept of the permutation and combination, right? So if so basically if you just instead happen to choose the three shortest girl, the sample mean would be much lower than the actual population mean. So what we do is instead of taking just one sample, we take multiple samples, right? And if in fact if you take all the samples, right, if you take every permutation and combination that is possible, that is like the best samples and the best number of samples that you can have, right? Like for example, if you have 30 girls in your class, right, if you have 30 girls in the class, and what we do is you start taking the you have to pick up the samples of three out of that. So what we do is we can work with the combination, right? We can work with the combination. So if I say 3ck, that is 90 factorial, 90c3, that is going to give me 30 factorial divided by 3 into 30 minus 3 factorial, right? This is what combination is. So we are trying to pick up every possible combination of three girls. Now that is something that we call it as, the number of samples that we can take. See, this is not an ideal number, right? If you have, if suppose you had a sample of, if you had a population of 100 people, 100 girls, and you had to take a sample of three girls over there, the number of samples would have become very, very large. So this is just an example that is given to you, that if you want to cover up each and every person in that sample, in that you want to cover each and every person in the entire population, so how you can take the number of sample is the formula for that will go like this: 9 NCK, right? That is the combination formula. I hope you all remember this, right? Combination formula, right? Permutation and combination that we used to study. So this is just that, that total number of every possible combination that we can have. So now what we will be doing over here is when you do the sampling, right? So sampling can be done two ways. One is with replacement and one is without replacement. So for example, if I say that from a bag of 100 balls, you have to pick a sample of 10 balls. Now that sampling can be done in two ways. That what you do is you pick out one ball, then you pick another ball, then you pick third ball. And another way could be you pick out the one ball from that bag and you replace it back, and then you again put it back. So that is sampling with replacement, right? What you're doing is you are putting the stuff back and then bringing it, out from the bag over here. So that is where, if you see over here, sampling with replacement means that you pick up a set of three girls and then you put them back into the population and then you pick another sample, right? So what we are doing, trying to understand over here is that how the sampling can be done on the data. Now sampling can be done in two ways. One is sampling with replacement, right? So what we do is we do one as sampling with replacement and second sampling without replacement. Okay. So sampling with replacement means basically, like out of those 30 girls, what you're doing is if you have to pick a sample of three girls, you pick the three girls, then you send the three girls back to that group, and again you select randomly three girls. Right now, in that replacement, what can happen is the same girls that we had in the previous sample, they can come again, right? You can measure their heights at that time. But when we talk about without replacement, so you know the girls who have already been height whose height has already been measured, they are now removed out from that picture. They will not be used again in that sampling. So that is how the two sampling techniques are used. So where do you think sampling with replacement and without replacement will work? Can you think of the scenarios? And where do you think you will go with sampling with replacement and where you will go with sampling without replacement?
Amit, can you please repeat this sampling concept?
So the concept basically, see, in what scenario will you go with sampling with replacement And in what scenario you will go sampling without, in which scenario you will do sampling without replacement? See, if your data set is small, right? If you just have 30, 50, 60, or 100, 200 set of data points, you will actually go with replacement. When your data set, the population is small, right? But when your population is big, you already have lots and lots of data points. So over there, what we do is we do it without replacement. When you have enough data, right? If I talk about the population of India, which is say suppose 100 crores, so I have to make the samples. So I can pick multiple samples where I can do it without replacement, right? I can pick 100 of samples of 10 lakh, 10 lakh, 10 lakh. If I have to measure the average salary of an Indian, I can do that, right? I don't need replacement in that. But when my subject is small, when my data set is small, in that case we will technically have to go with a replacement, because if I will go without replacement, I will not be able to make enough samples. Getting it? Right, so it totally depends upon the size of the population that you have, that whether you will go with more number of sampling with replacement or without replacement. And now over there also we have some ground rules which we will just be discussing over here, right? So now what we want to realize is that every one of the samples has its own mean, right? Now what will happen is, how do we make sure that the samples that we have taken, right? The samples also that we have taken, they are of good quality, right? Now getting it, now try to understand. First of all, we were saying that from that population, I will pick up sample. Okay. Now I am saying that that sample that I might would have picked could be wrong. So I took multiple samples. Now I want to check those multiple samples also, that the multiple samples that I have picked, are they going to give me the correct result or not? So what we do is basically all the samples that we take. Now every sample will have its own mean. True. Every sample is going to have its own mean. If I pick one sample of three girls, they will have their own average height. If I'll pick another set, they will have their own average height. So every sample that I'm going to pick, they will be having their own average. Correct. So what we do is, when we take such multiple samples, we actually analyze the distribution of that population. Okay, what we do is, so if I had taken multiple samples, I will take sample 1, I will find its mean. I will take the sample 2, I will find its mean, right? I will take the sample 3 and I will find its mean. And same way, the same thing, the things will keep on getting repeated, and we will have sample number n, for which we would have found the mean number n, right? We would have found the mean number n. Now this is how the things will happen, right? For each sample, they will have their own mean, own average value, own center point where that average would be lying. Are you all with me on this? What I've written over here. So all the samples that we have picked, every sample will be going to have its own mean. Now this is something that is called as sampling mean, sampling distribution of sample mean. Right, this is called as sampling distribution of sample mean. Basically, we are now analyzing the distribution of all the samples that we have now gathered, all the mean of that samples. Right, we are now trying to analyze the distribution of all the mean of all the samples that we have gathered, which is called as sampling distribution of sampling mean. So technique, it has been seen that when you take large enough samples, when you have good amount of samples with you, what you will observe is that the data is going to be normally distributed. Okay, the data is going to come normally distributed. Now, what is a normal distribution? Normal distribution is a distribution that looks like this. You have equal number of data points on the left hand side and you have equal number of data points on the right hand side, right? That is called as a data which is normally distributed. Okay, normal distribution is a kind of a data where you have this normal curve. This is called as normal curve. And how we come up with this is basically we are trying to say that this is a center point, this is the zero. So we have same number of samples which have the mean as same on the lower side and similar number of samples on the right hand side which have the mean on the higher side. Okay, so what we are trying to say over here is we are trying to say that a normal distribution data is such that, for example, the best example to understand this is, have you all heard of the term bell curve? Right, bell curve that we use in the companies. The companies say, we will be using the bell curve policy to give the appraisals, right? Now this is exactly that same thing. This is exactly that same thing that we have as a normalization curve. So what the companies do is they will say, okay, the people who have done exceptionally well, they are going to get very high salary appraisals, and similarly same number of people will be there which would have done very very badly. The people who would have performed badly, they will get very low appraisal, right? Then there will be slightly more people who would have done better, then slightly less people who would have done little, not exceptionally well, little less than them. So as we are going from left to right, the performance is increasing. So we will see that same number of people are going to lie on this curve on the left and right side. In the center, we have the average people, right? This is where the average lies. That most of the people would have got the salary hike as most of them would have got the salary hike as the average salary hike would have been the highest, right? Most of the people would have got the average salary hike. Now this is something that is called as normal curve. So what we are saying is that if you pick samples, right, if you pick samples over here, so we are saying that you have collected enough samples where multiple samples had a very small average salary, uh, and same way similarly a lot of samples which similar number of samples which had very high salary. Then again same number of samples which had a little higher salary, and similarly on the same side samples which had a little lesser salary, right? This is something that we call it as a normal distribution, where we are going left to right, the values are increasing, but the count is kind of similar on the left and the right hand side. Are you all able to get it a little bit, the understanding of this? Okay. Another example to understand this thing is that, like, let me talk about this session. So we have the session that starts at 7. I mean, I'm talking about the IST time, 7 a.m. Okay. So 7 a.m. the session has to start. Now what we do is we start observing that, okay, at what time Amit starts the session. Okay. So we see that there were certain times when he started the session 2 minutes early. Then there were certain points where he started the session 2 minutes late. Then there were certain instances when he started the session 4 minutes early. Then there were instances that he started the session 4 minutes late. Right? Then there were some instances he started the session 6 minutes early, but then there were some instances that he started the session 6 minutes late, right? And then there were some instances where he started the session 8 minutes early, and then there were certain instances when he started the session 8 minutes late. Correct. Now I have gathered those points. Now just imagine, right? Now you will all be able to relate to it. Now when the session is going to start, most of the frequencies will be such that it will be around the time, or it will be 2 minutes early or late, right? That will be the most number of the frequencies you are going to get, right? If there are 100 sessions that we have, so out of those 100 sessions, there will be 50, 60 sessions will be such where the time limit would have been between plus minus 2 minutes. And the gap from that time, as the gap of the time is increasing, the number of instances would be decreasing, right? Less number of instances where the session got started 4 minutes early, lesser number of sessions where it got started 6 minutes early, and even lesser where it got 8 minutes early, 8 minutes early, right? Because definitely a person is not going to start the session too early from what the requested time is. So this, when you make this curve, this is called as normalization curve. And this has been statistically seen. This has been statistically seen that from any set of data, if you will pick large enough samples, if you will take lots and lots of samples, and you will calculate the average of those samples, that will always come in the form of a normal distribution, right? That output will always come in the form of a normal distribution. Now, this is what this entire theory of sampling distribution or the sampling mean is all about. Okay. Right. So now, like as I was saying, that as I was telling you over here, that when you take large enough samples, that distribution comes out in the form of the distribution comes out in the form of a normalized curve. Now, this is something that has been proved with the help of central limit theorem. Right? There is a theorem that is central limit theorem. Has anyone heard of this theorem before? People might who would have done BTech, they might would have heard it over there. So we used to have a subject over there and we studied it. Nope. Okay. See, now central limit theorem is one theorem which says it has, now see, we are talking about the stuff which are statistically proven. Right now, we are not trying to prove the things. Now, see, statistics is lot about assumption. Statistics is lot about some theories that are already there, right? So what we see over here is we said that the sampling distribution of the sample mean is always normal. Now, this is just that I have just told you over here. So what we are saying over here, that whether the population is normally distributed or not, right? Whether the population, regardless of whether the population is normal or not, the mean will always be normal, which is profound. Basically, see, do you think, right? Like if I say, what I'm trying to say over here is, if I talk about India or any other country, do you think the population of that country will be normally distributed, as in that same number of people who are poor and the same number of people who are rich? Do you think will that be possible, or this is something that will be happening in the countries? No, right? So what happened is we this this the central limit theorem that we have. This central limit theorem says that whether your population is just normally distributed or not, okay, but if you will take large enough samples from that population, the mean of that samples will always come centrally distributed. That sample will always that mean will always come centrally distributed, normally distributed. Okay, this is what this theorem tells. So regardless of whether the population distribution is normal, the sampling distribution of the sample mean will always be normal, which is profound. And the central limit theorem is a justification for that. And the central limit theorem proves that. So what we do is, most distributions are not normal, right? Most of the data that you will be working with and the most of the things that you will be dealing with in your day-to-day life, they will not be normal, meaning that they don't have a bell-shaped curve. So what we do is, the central limit theorem, we use the concept of central limit theorem to turn a non-normal distributed data into a normal distribution, right? So what we do is we use the concept of this central limit theorem to convert that data into the normal distributed data. And how do we do that is, this says that if you take a sample of at least 30, right? Central limit theorem says that if you take a sample of at least 30, and you take large enough samples over there, they will always come normally distributed. This is what the central limit theorem has said. It tells that if a population distribution is non-normal, as long as you use large enough sample, a sample of at least 30, we can make inferences about our sample statistics by comparing them to the normally distributed sampling distribution mean. Right? So what you do is, it says if you take large enough samples where a minimum sample is of size 30, that sampling mean will always come normally distributed. So the central limit theorem is useful because it lets us apply what we know about normal distributions. Because what has happened is there are some empirical formulas that we have. What are those empirical formulas? Empirical formulas are something that tells what that empirical formula tells us is that I will be talking about that in just a little while. So when you have a data, the probability or the percentage of a data to lie within one standard deviation is 68%. There are 68% chances that when you predict something, the data is going to lie in one one standard deviation. So maybe this will be a little confusing. Let me just come to it in a little while. I'll just explain you this thing. Okay. So any question up till here? Anyone anything you would like to ask?
Yeah, I have a question, Amit.
Uh,
As per central limit theorem, the mean sample means will come out to be normally distributed. So,
right.
do we keep, like, suppose we have taken 50 samples for our data, then we got the mean for those samples and distributed them on a plot, and it's not exactly the ideal bell shape. So, does that indicate that we need to take more samples? Is that a
Huh. So basically, see, the idea behind the central limit theorem is this, that you should have large enough samples. If you are, and it says the sample size should also be 30 and the number of samples should also be more than 30. So with 3-4 samples or very limited samples, this will not fall true. So you have to take lot of samples in that.
the combination of samples, the formula which you gave, should it be as much as those? Like, determine how many samples should
it's not necessary as per that formula only. You can go by your that also, that data set that you have. Suppose you have a complete population of 1,000, so you are taking large enough sample, as in, see, if you have values of 1,000, basically what happen is that all the concept of statistics that we have, all the concept of statistics are built around the normal distribution, that the data is normally distributed. Now if suppose I have, in my class there are 100 students. Now 100 students, it cannot be possible that that if I have to plot their height on the normal distribution, it will not happen that we have same number of people with a very short height and the same number of people with a very tall height. It will not happen, right? But what this central limit theorem says is that if you will take from this data of 100, if you take a sample of 30 students, you take sample of 30 students and you take lot of samples, right? Then if you will find the average height of each sample, that will come out to be as normally distributed.
And for such a small data set, probably we will need to use it with replacement, like as in we will take it out and then put it back in the data, the sample.
Yes, you will have to put it back because otherwise you won't be able to make those samples.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Making sense or still confusion?
No, yeah, making sense. Thanks.
Okay. So now what we do is, the reason we are able to use SDSM in place of population distribution is because the mean of the sampling will always be same as the mean of the original non-normal distribution. See, now this is something, again, a very what I will say is a part over here, little confusing. Not confusing, I would say. Basically, what happened is, what I'm trying to say over here is, the reason that we are able to use this, the reason we are able to use the sampling distribution or the sampling mean in place of the population distribution, right? So what I'm trying to say over here is that, what we are saying over here is that I had 100 boys in my class and I measured their heights. I measured the height of, you know, I made a group of 30 students and I measured their height. So what this sampling mean tells me is that if you will plot the average, right? If you will plot the average of each group, each sample that you would have taken, first thing is that it is going to come normally distributed. And secondly, when you will find the mean, right? When you will find the mean of this distribution mean, if you will find the mean of this value, this will be actually equal to the average of the normal data also. If you would have taken the, if you would have taken the normal mean over
Average of
here,
100
average
boys, that would be
student
the
also,
same as this.
that would be same, right? If you would have taken the average of those 100 students standalone and the average of the average samples, right? They would have been the same. It would have come out to be same. Will always be the same. Clear?
One question here is that the average of the sampling distribution sampling mean, that would not be the center line, right? Because that would be the median, not the mean, not necessarily the mean.
Where?
So the bell curve which you plotted, if you put a line in the center,
Huh?
that will be the median, not necessarily the mean.
No. So in a normal bell curve, what happens is the mean, median, and mode. Everything lies over here only. Everything lies on the same point.
Okay.
Mean, median, mode. See, because we are saying this is the average, you will have same number of values over here, same number of values over here. That
Oh,
becomes
okay.
and because this is the center point, most number of frequencies are going to happen over here only. So that is the mode is also over here.
Okay. So then that means that the center line, whatever the value at the center line, like whatever the median of this will be, number of mean will be the same as for the sample mean. So for all the samples, the mean we take and then we plot on this chart, the value which we get in the center is going to be the same if we would found the mean for 100 people. As a,
Correct. Yes. So if you plot that samples and you take the average of that will be equal to the normal average also of that the complete population. So that is why we are actually using this entire concept because it was statistically found. If you want to know, I will show you a small example also where I will take the samples and we will be able to compare it. I'll show you that example as well. Let me just try to see. Just give me a second. Yeah, I'll show you just to make this thing more clear, because when you see it, it makes more sense. So I'll be just showing you don't have to focus on the coding, right? I'll be showing you this thing in the R. Okay. See, what I'll do is I'll show you a small example of this. Now I'm doing what I'm doing over here is I'm taking some random uniform 10,000 numbers, right? I'm taking some random uniform 10,000 numbers. So let me show you this. So I've taken 10,000 random, right? Random uniform numbers. So if you will try to see the numbers, now these are the numbers that are going to lie between 0 to 1. Okay, so if I show you this, they're lying some, I have some 10,000 numbers which are between 0 to 1 now over here. These are uniform numbers. Let me plot it on the histogram. So uniform means that every number is coming the same number of times. The numbers are coming same number of times. So you see these, so 0 to Okay. So class, everyone, do you see it? So what we have done, is I'm showing you, I have picked up some uniform numbers, right? Uniform means that between 0 to 0.1, same equal amount of numbers, 0.1 to 0.2 equal amount of number. That is called the uniform numbers, right? So I just made some random numbers over here. Now, what I will do is I will find the mean of these numbers. I am finding the mean of this, which is coming as 0.5. Right, the average of these numbers is going to come out to be as 0.5, because these are uniform numbers between 0 to 1, so definitely the average is going to lie around 0.5. And if you will find the standard deviation is coming as 0.2. Okay, now see, this is this example where you will all understand the complete crux of the central limit theorem. So you don't have to follow the coding, right? Please not concentrate on the coding. Just try to follow on the numbers, the number that I'm going to show. Now, this is the average of that sample, the 1000 numbers that I have. And this is the standard deviation of that 1000 numbers that I have. Correct? Average and the standard deviation that we discussed in the previous class, that how the numbers are deviating around the mean. That is called a standard deviation. Okay. Now what I do is I take a sample of 4. I make a sample of 4 over here. Okay. I take a sample of 4. So the sample of 4, if I take the 4 sample, randomly 4 numbers are selected. See, I'm taking a sample. Okay. I'm taking a sample from the data. So I took a sample of 4 numbers from those 10,000 numbers that I had. Okay. And then what I did was I am finding the mean of that. So the mean comes out to be as 0.53. Okay. Now what I will do is, now this is one sample that I have picked. This is one sample that I have picked from that data. But what does central limit theorem say? That you take large enough samples. If you will take large enough samples and take the mean of that and you will plot it on a histogram, it will come normally distributed. Okay, this is what that central limit theorem says. So what I do now is I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to now take 1000 such samples, and for each sample I am going to find the mean. I hope you are all with me. What I'm doing is I am going to take a sample of 4 from that 10,000 numbers, and I am going to take 1000 such samples. I'm going to take 1000 such samples. So what I'll see over here now is, if I will plot it and I will show you the histogram. Do you see this histogram is coming normally distributed? You see it? This is coming normally distributed. Same number of data points on the lower side and the same number of points on the higher side. Correct? Now this is normal distribution. So this is where you see that the theorem has been proved true, that if you take large enough samples and you will plot the average of that, that will always come in the normal distribution. Now this is what this theorem tells, and this is not just that this will happen only in one case. Now what I'm doing over here is I am going to just store the mean. Let's calculate the mean of this. Let's calculate the mean. So what I'm doing, what is the mean that I'm calculating? Mean of that samples that I have taken. So that is coming as 0.49, right? This is coming as 0.49. And what was the mean of the entire data?
0.5.
0.5. So can I say they are both same?
Yeah, roughly the same. Yes.
Right? 0.49 and 0.5. So if you will round it up, they both will come same only, 0.5 only. Same way, if I change, and let me also find the standard deviation. Let me also find standard deviation as well. So standard deviation is also something that will play an important role. So standard deviation, you see, it has come out to be as 0.13. Standard deviation has changed, right? Standard deviation has changed. So standard deviation of that complete sample, of that complete data was 0.28, right? But when I found the standard deviation of a sample of 4, it is coming as 0.13. Okay, this has changed, and this is changing by a formula. This is changing by some ratio, which I will be just telling you. Okay. Now what I'll do is, let's try it on some one more sample. Now instead of taking nine samples, instead of taking four, let's take nine this time. Let's take nine samples, right? So I'm taking nine numbers out of that 10,000 numbers that I have, and for I'm going to calculate the mean of that, and I'm going to find take 1,000 such samples. If you see again now, it comes in normally distributed. Now over here, I have taken the samples of nine, right? It has again come normally distributed. Same way, if you will check the mean of this, right? If you will check the mean of this, comes 0.5, exactly same as what the mean of the data is, right? And if you now take standard deviation is going to change. It became 0.09.
Point
Okay.
one. Okay,
So
reduced.
do you see any trend in the standard deviation?
So the more sample size you're taking, like from nine, standard deviation has reduced, and when you're taken for the whole sample, that's
Mhm.
coming out to be 0.28, like zero point 0.2, and then at SDC 14 it was 0.13. So it was roughly half of what it was for the full population.
Correct. So basically, as my sample size is increasing, right? Let's just give me 2 minutes, right? Just 2 minutes. Let me plug in the charger and just start. Yeah, here. Mm, right. So up till here, are we sorted? Like what I have told you, right? That as I'm taking the samples, one thing is evident that my data is coming in the normal distribution when I'm plotting the mean. The mean of that distribution is coming as same. And next thing is standard deviation is decreasing. See now, why do you think standard deviation is decreasing? See, deviation means basically how the value is deviating around the average value, right? How the value is deviating around the average. So what I say is that now let's just try to take a small example. Okay. Now, uh, deviation means that how the data is deviated around that center point, how much far off it is from the center point. Now, if I say that, you take four samples of mine, you take four samples of my sessions, that when Amit started the sessions, let me take four samples. So in one sample, you saw that, he started the session 8 minutes late. In another sample, you saw that, he started the session 6 minutes early. In one, you saw that he started the 1 minute session, he started the session 1 minute late. In one, you saw he started the session 2 minutes late. If you will find the average and you will find the standard deviation, in this, you will find the standard deviation to be more because the number of samples are less. But when you take more samples, right? When you take the number of samples, when you take more number of samples, so the same number of data points will be higher in that, right? There will be more instances when he would have started the session at the same time, right? Suppose you take a sample of 20 such instances, you will say, okay, out of there were five such instances where he started the session 5 minutes late. There were four such instances where he started the sessions 3 minutes late. There was one instance where he started the session 2 minutes late. Likewise, you will have the same data point being repeated multiple times when you take more number of samples. Am I right in saying that? Right? When you're increasing the sample size, if you now say that you have to pick a sample, you have 500 shirts placed in front of you, right? You pick four shirts. One shirt can be green, one shirt can be orange, one shirt can be yellow, one shirt can be red. But if I say pick now 10 shirts, definitely there are chances that you might pick two shirts which will be red, two shirts which will be orange, two shirts which will be red, green, right? So the chances of the deviation from that center point, they decrease because now you have more number of data points in that, right? So that is why what is happening is deviation from the mean is decreasing. As bigger samples you are taking, you are able to find a better understanding that what will be the average or anything that you are trying to calculate. Yes, making sense to all of you? If you take sample of 10 people and you have to tell what is the average salary in the company, your number will be very much deviated from the true value. If you take a sample of 100 people, your assumption, your output will be very much near to what the average of that average salary of that company is. Now, if you further increase that sample, you take the sample size of 1,000 people, definitely your average will be much more clear, much more better in that case, right? So that is what we understand by this standard deviation, why it is decreasing. Okay. Now, as we are moving ahead, you notice that the sample, now if I take just one last example, now if I take a sample of 100, we previously took 1, then 4, then 9, then now I'm taking 100 also. And let's make a histogram. Again, it comes normally distributed, right? You will find it is again coming normally distributed. Okay, so you see it's a normal distribution now. And if you will find the mean also of this, mean is coming again 0.5. And if you will now check the standard deviation, it would have further decreased. It comes 0.02. So what happens is, it has been observed that when you are working with such samples, mean will be same, standard deviation is equal to standard deviation of the population divided by square root of n. N is sample size. Okay. Now, what was the standard deviation of the population class? What was the standard deviation of the population?
0.29, 0.28.
4.28. Now, when I take the sample of 4, so according to this formula, the standard deviation should come out to be as 0.28 divided by square root of 4, that is 2, which will be 0.14 something, 0.14.
Only, yeah.
Correct. And this is the same number that we also got,
0.1399.
0.1399, right? When I take a sample of 100, that means 0.28 divided by 10, that will be 0.02. That is the same number that you get over here, 0.02. Right now, these are the things that are proven by central limit theorem, and we are just trying to verify that thing by doing those calculations by ourselves. And this is holding out to be true. So as you are increasing the sample size, the standard deviation is decreasing. And how is it decreasing? It is decreasing by the square root of that sample that you would have taken. Bigger the sample, the deviation would have reduced by a higher amount. Okay. Now this is the entire crux that I've just explained you over here, right? So variation also I've explained you that the standard deviation of the sampling distribution, also called as standard means, is given by this formula. The formula that I've just explained you in the R right now. So it says that if you will find the standard deviation of the sampling distributions of sample mean, it is going to be equal to standard deviation of the population divided by the square root of the sample size, and which we also call it as standard error. We call this term as standard error also. Okay, you call it as a standard error of the mean, or you call it as the standard deviation of the sample mean. That is called as, they both are same, just another name of that.
So even if we have a sample standard deviation and we know the sample size, we can actually calculate the standard deviation for the whole population then using this formula.
Yes. If you know the standard deviation of that sample and you know the mean, you can actually find that. True. Okay. Right. So now the standard error that we find, right? Now standard error tell us how accurate the mean of any given sample is likely to be compared to the actual mean. When the standard error is large, it indicates that the mean are more spread. Whereas when this is less, it means the mean is accurate representation of the true population. So basically, the standard deviation that we find, if you see that the standard deviation comes out to be very, very high, that means the average that you are going to get, right? The average that you are going to get between the actual population and the sample that you have taken, the error will be, that means there is a difference in that. So there could be some difference that you might find in context of the average that you find of the distribution versus the entire population. Whereas when the standard error value comes out to be smaller, that means your data is correct or the actual representation of the true population, right? That is what we mean. That is why we call it as a standard error. Like for example, if the standard error comes out, so see, it's quite evident. The bigger the sample size will be, right? If you will increase the sample size, what will happen? Standard error will reduce. Correct? Or the standard deviation of that the sampling distribution will reduce. It will come on a lower side, right? So that is what we are. That is why we are also calling it a standard error. If you will increase the sample size, that means what will happen is you will get a better picture of your the samples that you are trying to create on the normal distribution. That is what it says. See, mean, it will be equal to mean. It is not exactly equal to mean. This is also something that we have observed over here. So when we were finding the mean, it was not always exactly the same. There was a minor up and down difference that was there, if you would have observed, right? When I took, when I had a sample of 4, it was coming as 0.496, and when I took a sample of 0.50, a sample of 9, it came out to be 0.501. It got a slightly more nearer to this actual mean, right? So that is what we mean. So there will be slight difference that will always be there, because see, definitely it cannot be exactly the same. But as you will keep on increasing your sample size, you will be more and more nearer to the actual representation of that population mean. So this is called as, that is why we call it as a standard error. So the standard error will be large when the population standard deviation is larger and sample size is smaller, right? If your population was very big and you took very small sample size, definitely you will get more error. But and the other way around, it will be less. Okay. So now a couple of techniques, a couple of these conditions that you have to keep in mind when you take the samples. Now sampling should always be random, right? So whenever you take the samples, you have to make sure that the sampling is random. Random means, if suppose you are having a group of people with you, and you say I will pick the salary of males only. Now, if you say I will pick the salary of males only, definitely you are not going to get the true picture of your population, right? So sampling should be random, that you should not know that what you are picking. So sampling should always happen randomly. Secondly, you should always pick large enough samples. Whenever you're doing some sampling, you should try to make sure that you pick large enough samples. And 30 is the magic number. We should try to make sure that we pick at least 30 samples over there with a size of 30. Right now, 30 is that we should try to keep, that we should try to make sure that we are taking. See, if the population is already normally distributed, right? If suppose in my class I have 100 students and the height of those 100 students is already normally distributed, then even if you take a sample, small sample or large sample, they will always come normally distributed only, right? The main reason that we are doing all this stuff is that it will be very rare that you will find that your data is normally distributed. So that is why we are doing all these things over there, right? So when we use a sample of less than 30, the sample size isn't big enough to ensure that the sampling distribution or the sampling mean will be normally distributed, right? So this is something that we have to take care of. So two conditions. The third condition is independence condition, 10% rule. Now, if you are doing the sampling with replacement, right? If you are doing the sampling with replacement, so 10% rule is something that we should use in order to make sure that we assume the independence of this sample. So what this 10% rule says is that if the original population is 2000 and you have to make sure that you take the sample size of less than 200 when you are doing the sampling with replacement, right? So when you're doing a sampling with replacement, you have to make sure that the samples that you are taking, they should be less than the 10% of the overall population. So if you have 2000 subjects, so your sample should be less than 200. It should not be more than that, more than 10% of that. That is a 10% rule. So please, everyone, you can just have a quick read at it. You will also understand it. Yep. Shall I move it? See, now we will try to understand this thing with a small example. Okay. Now a company produces soccer balls in a factory and individual soccer balls are filled to an approximate pressure of 8.7 psi, right? So there is a football company and they are definitely producing footballs only, and each soccer ball has an approximate pressure of this 8.7 psi, pounds per square inch, and they have a standard deviation of 0.4. Now the pressure of the pressure in the ball is normally distributed. Now the company randomly selects 25 soccer balls to check their pressure. What is the probability that the mean amount of pressure in the ball is 0.2 psi of the population mean? Okay. See, first of all, please, all of you understand the question, then we will see the solution as well. So a company, right, is now tell me first question that I have from all of you is the population normally distributed? Is my population normally distributed?
Yes.
Yes, because it's mentioned over here. The pressure in the soccer ball is normally distributed. And now from there, what I'm doing is I am picking up the 25 soccer balls to check the pressure. Now I need to check that what is the probability that the mean amount of pressure in these ball is 0.2 psi of this. Okay. So before we start answering this thing, before we start answering this question, first of all, let us check the condition, like whether all my rules of normality are being applied on this. So we are saying that we have picked up 25, a sample of 25, which is not meeting the required criteria of threshold, that is 30. But we don't have a problem, right? Because my population is already normal. So even if my sample will be less than 30, the things will be fine, right? The population will be my sample will my sampling will work properly. So that means my condition is true because the population is normal. The sampling distribution of the sample means will be normal as will be a normal over here. Now, if the population was non-normal, then we would have to make sure that we had taken at least 30 soccer balls. Now, over here, if you see, it is reasonable to assume that since 25 soccer balls are picked, they are less than the 10%, right? Because it's a factory and they will be producing thousands of footballs, and 10% of that definitely will be lot more than 25. So we have taken a size of less than 10%, which also falls true over here. Now what we need to do is we have to now check what is the probability that the sample mean is going to lie between that percentage. So let's start calculating it. The sample mean that is given to us is 8.7, right? The sample mean will be equal to the population mean because the data is normally distributed, correct?
Yes.
So the sample mean will be equal to the population mean, that is 8.7. So what will be the standard error? That will be sigma divided by root n. So sigma divided by root n. So what is the root n? That is 25, and 0.4 is the standard deviation of the population. That is also given to us. If you check in the question, so you see what is the standard deviation in that population? That is 0.4 psi. And this is the average air that they are filling. So now because the data is normally distributed, will I be right in saying that these 25 balls will also have the same average pressure? Yes, class?
So can you go up in the question, please?
Sure.
They're saying that the soccer balls are filled to an approximate pressure of 8.7 psi. So you're saying by approximate pressure, they mean average pressure.
Average pressure, yes.
So the average pressure of those soccer balls is 8.7 psi.
And they have a deviation of 0.4 psi. Some balls can have 9.1 also, some can have 8.3 also. But the average lies is 8.7.
Okay.
Right? And all the balls are normally distributed. So if I pick 25 balls from that sample, which is from that population, which is already normally distributed, so the average of these 25 balls will also be same to
Yeah,
this only.
8.7. Yes.
Yes, it will be same only. So average of these is equal to 8.7. So this is what we are saying. And now I know what is the standard deviation of the population. I know the standard deviation of the population. So now I'm trying to find the standard deviation of this sample. And for that, we have already seen right? So for that, we have already seen a formula that sigma x the standard deviation of the population is equal to standard deviation of the population divided by root n, right? So standard deviation of the population is 0.4, 0.4 divided by root 25, that comes out to be as 0.08, right? So this is coming out to be as, the deviation is coming out to be as 0.08. Now what we have to find, so up till here, are we all sorted, everyone? Radhika, Harshad, Marina,
Yes.
okay, Isha, okay. So this is
Yes,
the,
understood.
so this is the standard deviation of the, this is the standard deviation of the sample that we have calculated. Now we want to know what is the probability that the sample mean, right? This X bar is between within the 0.2 psi of the population, right? Now we have to find what is the probability that it is between the 0.2 psi of the population mean. So we need to express this 0.2 in terms of standard deviation. So 0.2 divided by 0.08, right? We are saying that within the 0.2 limit. And what is the standard deviation of this? 0.08. So we divided 0.2 divided by 0.08 over here, which comes out to be as 2.5, right? So what we do is, which means that the probability of this value lying more than within the 2.5 is the probability of, basically what we have to do is we have to find something which is called as Z score over here, right? That is the score of standardization. That is a score of standardization, with the help of which what we do is we find the probability. Okay, because like this normalization curve that I was showing you over here, what this normalization curve tells you is that if the data is lying within one standard deviation, right? If the data is lying between one standard deviation, the probability of any point you pick to lie within one standard deviation is 68%. Okay, this is, if you remember, I was trying to tell you a little part on this, that is 68%. And if I go into the two deviations, this comes out to be as 95%. And when you go into the three deviations, this turned out to be as 99%. This is what this normalization curve is used for. Okay, so I know this will not make any sense to you. You will be wondering that what Amit has done over here. So let me try to explain you.
Amit, why is it saying within 0.2 psi? Why? How
That
do
was
0.2?
it was in the question. Na? The question says what is the probability that it is lying within 2.2 psi,
Okay, that was okay.
right? So what is the probability of the mean amount of pressure that it is within 0.2 psi of the population?
So what does this mean? What does this mean? That what is the probability that the mean amount of pressure in these balls X bar? So mean amount of pressure in these balls, isn't it 8.7?
So we are not talking on the standard deviation. So we are saying, see, mean about the pressure in these balls. See, mean about is deviation. Now, what is the probability that it is lying within the 0.2 psi of the population mean? That is, if you say that the mean was 8.7, so you are saying that what are the chances that the 25 balls that you have picked up, they are the average of that, the average of those balls is going to lie around 8.7, 8.9 to 8.5.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. See, what we do is now. So maybe let me do one thing. Let me try to explain you that in tomorrow's session. We will take a little time also today, right? That is the Z score. So I'll start with that Z score. So on that, I will start from things. So I'll explain you that what is score of standardization. And then this part of the question, you will be able to understand it very easily. This portion you will understand then easily, right? What we have done over here. So let me just park this for tomorrow. Let's do it in tomorrow's session now. Okay. I because I'm sure that some things will actually get skipped. So we'll take that up tomorrow. Is there anything you would like to ask before we go off?
We'll be using all this in Python, like coding these formulas.
No. See, these are not. We are going. This is we are not going to be using the Python and all. This is the concept building that is going to happen. So in that, what will happen is in the Python, you will actually see these numbers will come right away. These numbers will come right away. These 0.5, 0.3 point numbers. These numbers will come right away in the Python. But I'm just trying to make you all understand the mathematics behind that. And we will be doing a lot of questions on the pen and paper only. As I mentioned previously also, you will do a lot of stuff with your hands only. Like right now also, I'm not using any software over here. We will do just the things on the pen and paper. I will be giving certain questions. You will calculate by your hands and share the answers. Okay. But yes, these concepts will be used over there. Right. So let's connect tomorrow and take the things ahead from there. Thank you.